I don't care what the papers say. She always deserved more. I heard my mother's voice through the thin wall between the kitchen and the hallway, her words knifing through the sound of my own heartbeat. I'd come to help clean out Dad's study, not snoop, but the conversation had stopped me in my tracks. My sister, Megan, was laughing, soft and brittle. "Don't worry, Mom. Nobody's going to stand in the way this time." I stood there, clutching a garbage bag full of old files, suddenly aware that my name had never come up once since Dad died. Not in the laughter, not in the hush of their plotting. The world tilted. I'd always known Megan was the golden child. I just hadn't realized what they were willing to do about it. My name is Anna Tran. I'm 34 years old, a middle school teacher, and I used to think I came from an ordinary family in suburban Virginia. I'm not. I grew up second best in my own home, second to Megan's effortless grace, her shining hair, her easy way with our parents. Even so, I believed, right up until that moment, that I'd at least get to say goodbye to my father's memory on fair ground. That's not how it happened. This is the story of how everything fell apart. Until Dad's stroke, my life was calm in its small ways. I rented a 2-bedroom in Arlington, drove a reliable Civic, and spent my weekends grading essays or making dinner for my boyfriend, Mark. I didn't have the kind of money to take last-minute flights or splurge on designer things, but I was proud of my independence. Growing up, I learned not to ask for much. Megan always seemed to need more, and my parents, especially my mother, were experts at explaining why she deserved it. I told myself I didn't care. The truth was, I did. Dad was different. He was quiet and careful, the one who showed up to my school plays even when Mom didn't. When he called after my promotion, he said he was proud of me, that it meant something to make a difference for kids. After he passed, all I wanted was to honor that memory. I didn't expect a fight. I didn't expect a war. The pain of losing him made everything raw. I still remember the night of his stroke, Mom's voice trembling on the phone, Megan's ragged sobs, the cold hospital light as I said my last words to him, his hand slack in mine. The next days blurred with logistics and condolences. I tried to help, but Megan took over, organizing, delegating, shining in the role of grieving daughter in a way I could never match. I kept my head down, trying to be useful. It was in the days that followed that old patterns resurfaced. Mom treated Megan like the only one suffering. When I offered to stay the week and help sort Dad's things, I was told, "You have work, Anna. Let us handle it." Megan's eyes flickered over me, not quite meeting my gaze. I tried not to read into it. Dad's will was scheduled to be read in 2 weeks. I didn't expect much, just a fair split of his modest estate. Our family home, a tidy single level on a cul-de-sac, was paid off. Dad had a pension from his years in city maintenance. I figured there were no secrets. I was wrong. Mom seemed nervous when I asked about Dad's accounts. She said she didn't remember the details. Megan was evasive, quick to change the subject to her own tangled grief. I told myself to let it go. It wasn't worth a fight. The day I overheard them in the kitchen, everything I'd kept buried for years surged to the surface. I realized, they were planning something. And whatever it was, I wasn't supposed to know. Before Dad died, Sundays meant family dinners. He'd grill salmon and we'd sit around the table. Megan would talk about her next trip, her circle of high-powered friends, the exciting projects she never quite explained. I'd listen, offering stories from my classroom that fell flat. Mom's eyes would always drift toward Megan, shining with pride. Dad would squeeze my hand after, saying quietly, "I see you, Anna." When I got my first teaching job, Dad took me out for ice cream. He gave me a plain envelope with a crisp $50 bill. "Don't tell your mother," he'd said, with a half-smile. "She'll say I'm spoiling you." That was Dad, quiet, but careful in his love. He never made a fuss, never defended me outright, but he made sure I had what I needed, in small, secret ways. Megan, on the other hand, lived in a different world. She was always flitting from job to job, talking about consulting and networking, but somehow always had money for new bags, for rent in a luxury high-rise downtown, for last-minute trips to Miami or LA. I assumed she was just lucky, or that Mom was helping more than she'd admit. Anytime I wondered aloud about Megan's finances, Mom would bristle. She works hard. Things just fall into place for some people. When Dad got sick, Megan swooped in with her usual confidence. She handled the doctors, the funeral arrangements, the financial calls. I was grateful at first, overwhelmed by the paperwork and grief. But strange things happened. Mom started making veiled comments about taking care of what's rightfully ours. Megan would lock herself away with Dad's files. When I asked if I could help, she would wave me off. "You wouldn't understand, Anna. It's complicated." After Dad's funeral, I tried to settle back into my routine. Mark was supportive, but distracted by his job search. I felt like I was drifting, waiting for some sense of closure. When I got the notice about the will reading, it seemed simple enough, just a formality, a way to close the book. Megan didn't answer my texts about it. Mom told me, "We'll see you there," in a tone that said, "Don't ask questions." 2 days before the will was read, I stopped by the house to drop off a casserole. That's when I overheard them in the kitchen, talking like conspirators. I pressed my ear to the wall, heart pounding, listening as Megan said, "The lawyer's on our side. Anna won't cause trouble. She never does." Mom just sighed. "It's for the best. She has her own life." I stood frozen, knowing, finally, fully, that I was being shut out. Betrayed, not just by my sister, not just by my mother, but by the very family I'd tried so hard, for so long, to belong to. The will reading was in a small lawyer's office, the kind with brown carpets and fake plants. I arrived early, clutching my notebook, hand sweating. Megan breezed in 5 minutes late, sunglasses pushed up on her head, her smile wide and untroubled. Mom followed, eyes red, but distant. The lawyer, a soft-voiced man named Mr. Keene, shuffled papers, coughed, and began. Dad's voice, through the words on the page, was calm and even. "Half the house to Megan. Half to me. His pension to be split equally." Nothing surprising, until Mr. Keene read, "And to my daughter Megan, I leave the entirety of my personal investment accounts and all other liquid assets at First Capital Bank." My breath caught in my throat. Megan's lips curled in a small, satisfied smile. I forced myself to speak. "Excuse me, what investment accounts?" I looked at Mr. Keene, then my mother, then Megan. The lawyer blinked, flustered. "It's all detailed here. Your father held a substantial portfolio with First Capital. The beneficiary is Megan Tran." I turned to Mom. "Did you know about this?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Your father wanted what was best for both of you." Megan squeezed Mom's hand, her voice sweet and false. "Don't make this a scene, Anna. Dad made his choice." I felt my face flush with humiliation and anger. "He never mentioned this to me. Not once." Mr. Keene shuffled his papers. "If you have concerns, you can contest the will. But these were your father's wishes." I stared at the paper, the numbers blurring. Nearly $620,000, left entirely to Megan. I'd expected a small nest egg, maybe a few thousand. Instead, the wealth I never even knew existed, all handed to my sister. After the meeting, I tried to talk to my mother. She brushed me off. "I'm tired, Anna. Your sister needs your support. She's been through so much." Megan lingered just long enough to say, under her breath, "Don't embarrass yourself. If you fight this, you'll lose." In the car, I called Mark, voice shaking. They gave everything to her. Money I didn't even know about. He tried to comfort me, but his words felt thin. "Are you sure it's legal?" I didn't know. I just knew I felt erased. The days that followed blurred into a dark, choking fog. I couldn't sleep. I replayed the will reading over and over, searching for some clue, some mistake. I called First Capital Bank, but they wouldn't give me any information, They said everything was in Megan's name, and their hands were tied. Megan didn't just get the money. She took over the house, too. She called me to say she wanted to renovate, and that I should pick up any belongings I wanted as soon as possible. When I protested, she said, "I have the paperwork. Don't make this harder for everyone." Mom stopped returning my calls. When I tried her cell, it rang once and went to voicemail. Messages went unanswered. Once, I saw she was posting photos with Megan, smiling brunches, shopping trips, on Facebook, the kind of photos she never took with me. At school, I went through the motions. My students sensed something was off. I snapped at them. I forgot assignments. My principal called me in to ask if I was okay. I lied, said I was just tired. Mark was sympathetic, but distant. He didn't understand the way this betrayal hollowed me out. "You don't even need the money, Anna," he said one night, exasperated. "It's just money." But it wasn't just money. It was proof. Proof that, in the end, I'd never really mattered to my family the way Megan did. Meanwhile, Megan's life blossomed. She posted photos of luxury vacations, Santorini, Tulum, Paris, captioned "Living my best life." She threw a housewarming party in the home I grew up in, redecorated in white and gold. Our family friends attended, all smiles and admiration, congratulating her on her success. Rumors trickled down to me. Megan was helping Mom out, taking care of everything, so generous. No one called to ask how I was doing. I tried to research my options. Could I contest the will? Lawyers wanted thousands in retainers. One told me, "It's nearly impossible unless you have evidence of coercion or fraud." I didn't. Not yet. The isolation deepened. Every attempt I made to reach out, to Mom, to friends of the family, even to Megan, was met with coldness or silence. I felt like a ghost. The final blow came when I received a notice from the bank. Megan had closed out Dad's safety deposit box. I didn't even know he had one. The letter was addressed to me, but written with Megan's cold efficiency. "All items have been handled according to Dad's wishes. Please respect our privacy." I stared at the page, my hands shaking, grief curdling into rage. I knew I was being erased. I just didn't know why. The more I tried to fight, the more doors slammed shut. Megan blocked my number. Mom sent an email, "Please stop creating drama. Dad is gone. Megan is handling things. Move on." I stayed up late, scouring old emails and family photos, searching for answers. Why was Dad's wealth a secret? Why did he trust Megan and not me? I replayed every conversation, every memory, tearing myself apart with doubt. I started to question my own reality. Was I really the problem? Was I imagining the betrayal? I forced myself to remember the facts: the overheard conversation in the kitchen, the will reading, the blank spaces where love should have been. I called First Capital again, desperate for information. The manager, polite but firm, told me, "I'm sorry, Ms. Tran. We can't release any account details unless you're the listed beneficiary." I begged. "My father just died. I'm his daughter. Please, was there ever any account in my name?" She paused. "I'm really sorry. There's nothing I can say." I hung up, feeling trapped. Alone. A week later, I drove past the house I grew up in. Megan's new BMW was in the driveway. Curtains I didn't recognize hung in the windows. My mother's old garden was gone, replaced with polished stones and a patio heater. I sat in my car, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles were white. I realized, I had nothing left to lose. That night, I went through the only box of Dad's things I'd managed to keep, a battered briefcase he'd used for decades. I opened it, not expecting much: a few old pay stubs, a yellowed photo of him and Mom from before Megan was born, and, tucked in a hidden compartment, a small blue notebook. I almost missed it. The cover was faded, the pages loose. Inside, Dad's neat handwriting filled page after page with account numbers, deposit slips, and notes about his investments. And, wedged between two pages, a letter addressed to me. I sat on the floor, heart pounding, as I read his words. Anna, if you're reading this, I hope you know how proud I am of you. I kept this separate because I knew Megan and your mother would never let you have your share otherwise. If something happens to me, show this to a lawyer you trust. Don't let them take everything. Love, Dad. I stared at the letter, tears streaming down my face. For the first time since his death, I felt him beside me, his quiet strength, his careful love. I spent the next day researching. I made copies of the notebook and the letter. I found a lawyer, one recommended by a coworker's aunt, someone with a reputation for handling messy inheritance cases discreetly. She was blunt, this is your leverage. The account numbers, the deposits, the letter, these are proof that your father intended for you to have a share. We can challenge the will. She explained that, while Dad's official will named Megan for the investment accounts, the handwritten letter and the detailed records could prove undue influence, or, at the very least, cast doubt on the legitimacy of the distribution. Especially if I could show that Dad had set aside assets for me, but Megan and Mom had hidden or destroyed the evidence. I hesitated. Was I ready to fight my own family in court? The thought made me sick. But I knew, in my bones, that I couldn't let them erase me. My lawyer sent a formal request to First Capital, demanding a freeze on the accounts pending legal review. She also notified Megan and my mother that we were contesting the will, citing new evidence. The response was immediate and furious. Megan called me from a blocked number, her voice icy. How dare you? You're destroying what little family we have left. Dad wanted me to have those accounts. This is just pathetic, Anna. I didn't rise to the bait. I have Dad's letter. I have the records. I know what you did. She hung up. Mom emailed again, the tone colder than ever. You're tearing us apart. Your father would be ashamed. But I knew better now. I had his words in his own hand. The legal battle wasn't quick. Megan and Mom hired a lawyer of their own, someone slick and expensive. They tried to claim the notebook was a fake. They accused me of fabricating evidence. The whole process dragged on for months. But my lawyer was meticulous. She traced the account numbers, cross-referenced the deposit slips, and subpoenaed bank records. It turned out, much of the money in the investment accounts had been moved in the last year of Dad's life, transferred, without his knowledge, into joint accounts controlled by Megan and Mom. That was the breakthrough. My lawyer confronted them with the evidence at mediation, emails between Megan and a bank manager, authorizing transfers on behalf of Dad, signed with a shaky, unconvincing digital signature. Security footage showed Megan visiting the bank on days Dad was in the hospital. Cornered, Megan blustered. Mom cried. But the truth was clear, they'd siphoned away my share while Dad was dying, convinced I'd never notice. The settlement wasn't perfect. Megan kept the house, but I received half the value of the investment accounts, hundreds of thousands of dollars I'd never expected to see. More importantly, the agreement required Megan and Mom to admit, in writing, that they'd improperly handled the distribution of assets. It happened quietly, in a lawyer's office, with no shouting or drama. But when I left, check in hand, I felt lighter. The fallout was immediate. Megan blocked me everywhere. Mom sent one last email, a single line, I hope you're happy. I didn't reply. I moved to a new apartment, closer to school. I paid off my student loans. I made a donation to the scholarship fund in Dad's name. The family, as I'd known it, was gone. There were no more Sunday dinners, no more awkward phone calls. The grief lingered, but so did something new, a sense of self-worth, a quiet knowledge that I mattered, that Dad had seen me even when nobody else did. I still have the blue notebook. Sometimes, late at night, I take it out and run my fingers over his handwriting. I think about the things families hide, the wounds that never quite heal. I wish things had been different. But I'm proud of the way I stood up for myself, proud that I didn't let them steal my place in Dad's memory. Life moves on. The colors are different now, sharper, a bit lonelier, but real. I still teach. I still care too much. I'm still learning how to live without the approval I once craved. If I've learned anything, it's this: sometimes, the only way to claim your worth is to fight for it, even when it costs you the very family you're fighting against. I close the notebook, put it away, and let myself rest. For the first time, that feels like enough.